into the deep dive. Ever stop to think about how really strong connections can just fall apart? Or how sometimes great blessings end up being the very thing that leads to, well, betrayal? Today, we're getting into an ancient text that gives this pretty startling look at what happens when generosity is forgotten. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. The core idea we're exploring today comes from a devotional dated August 11, 2025, called Why We Forget God's Grace. And its central message is really direct. Forgetting grace leads to spiritual ruin. This isn't just, abstract theology. It feels like a pattern you can almost see in relationships, maybe even in bigger groups sometimes, like a kind of relational breakdown where taking good things for granted just erodes trust.
That's exactly right. And for this deep dive, we're focusing on a really potent section from the biblical book of Ezekiel, chapter 16 specifically. This passage, which the devotional examines, doesn't hold back at all. It basically confronts ancient Israel with these really sharp accusations of ingratitude, of betrayal, especially jarring when you consider the immense blessings they had apparently received. It's a raw look at a relationship gone wrong.
So our mission today is to pull out the key insights from this really dramatic story. We want to get a handle on what happens when gratitude disappears and how amazing gifts can end up being misused so badly. And we'll try to connect it to, universal things we all experience: relationships, responsibility, what happens when we don't respect where good things come from. It's really about how we handle the good stuff in life and, importantly, the givers.
Yeah, and to really feel the weight of the betrayal described here, you first have to understand the starting point. This ancient story emphasizes this incredible foundation of grace. The text says God gave Israel immense blessings: beauty, provision, honor. It wasn't just about getting by. It was a life filled with, abundance and status.
Wow.
Imagine lifting someone from nothing to everything.
Right. And what I find really interesting is how specific the text gets about these gifts. It's not just vague provision. It talks about being fed with fine flour and oil and honey.
Exactly.
That doesn't sound like basic rations, does it? That sounds like the absolute best.
Absolutely. It implies a level of care, of real quality, way beyond just necessity. Ezekiel 16.1 spells it out. I fed you with fine flour and oil and honey. It underlines the sheer quality and quantity, a picture of overflowing goodness given freely.
Okay, so there's this foundation of incredible generosity.
Yeah.
But then...
That's the core accusation. Despite all this, Ezekiel 16 describes Israel taking those very gifts, her beauty, the garments, the gold and silver jewels, and using them for, the opposite of their intended purpose, to make idols, these colorful shrines and images of men. Yeah. The text uses the phrase, play the whore.
Which is strong language.
Very strong. It's a powerful metaphor here for spiritual unfaithfulness. Turning away from that primary relationship to seek validation or power elsewhere. It's kind of like using a family trust fund meant for, education or charity to fund something totally destructive, a complete misuse.
And the details given are just, wow. It says she used her embroidered garments, these beautiful things getting to her, to cover the idols.
Yes, it's a perversion of the gift.
Or even setting God's own oil and incense, things meant for worship, before these images instead.
It's shocking. Even the special food, that fine flour, oil, and honey,
the very best stuff,
became an offering, a pleasing aroma, but for the idols, not the giver.
Sorry.
It's a total inversion, like you said, a real slap in the face of the one who provided it all.
Yep.
But then it gets even worse. The most terrible accusation in the narrative.
Yeah.
It's truly grim. Israel took your sons and your daughters, whom you had borne to me, and these you sacrificed to them to be devoured.
Gosh.
The text pushes further, asking, were your whoring so small a matter that you slaughtered my children? It depicts this extreme, horrific act, the ultimate misuse of the most precious gift, life itself. And while these ancient practices are hard to even think about, the dynamic, using what's most valuable in the most destructive way, that resonates with any deep betrayal, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It really hits home that feeling. I mean, in our own lives, few things hurt more than kindness being met with cruelty or betrayal, right?
Right.
We naturally hate ingratitude. It feels fundamentally wrong. It breaks something. And yet, the devotional makes us ask, okay, how often do we forget the gifts that got us here? Whether it's, opportunities, people who helped us, even just the basic freedoms we have. It's easy to start taking things for granted, forgetting that initial feeling of receiving something wonderful. This text kind of shocks you back into remembering.
And that distinction the devotional makes is key. It says, this is not just rebellion, it's ingratitude.
What's the difference there, really?
Well, rebellion might be about fighting against authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
A power struggle. But ingratitude, That feels more personal. It wounds the relationship itself. The devotional argues that when we start thinking everything we have is purely down to us, our own effort, and then use it selfishly or harmfully, we dishonor the giver. It's an insult to the source, whoever or whatever that source might be for us. A mentor, parents, society, God.
Okay, that makes sense. And the story emphasizes this by describing Israel constantly chasing after other nations, Egypt, Assyria, Chaldea, called lovers in the text.
Yes, seeking validation elsewhere.
Multiplying this whoring, as the text puts it, but never finding satisfaction, always needing more.
Exactly. It paints this picture of just endless, restless seeking. A spiritual hunger that can't be filled because it's looking in the wrong places despite being surrounded by genuine blessings already.
That's chasing shadows.
Precisely.
Right.
And this leads to something the text describes as, frankly, uniquely sick about Israel's behavior in Ezekiel 16. Unlike a typical prostitute who gets paid, Israel scorned payment. She wasn't the one receiving gifts in these illicit relationships. She was the one giving them.
Wait, she paid them?
Yes. You gave your gifts to all your lovers, bribing them to come to you from every side. It says no one solicited her. She initiated it and paid them.
That is bizarre. It's completely backward.
It really is. It shows this deep, self-driven perversion of relationship dynamics, a profound spiritual sickness driven by misguided desires, not external need or even simple transaction, like someone desperately giving away their fortune to try and buy affection they could have had freely.
Okay, so this is a really intense, ancient story. But how does it connect to us now? What does this all mean for you listening today? Because the devotional's application point brings it right into our lives. It's not just ancient history.
No, definitely not. It has some really pointed questions that I think hit home regardless of your specific beliefs. Like, are you using the gifts you've been given, your talents, resources, time, to honor the source or to serve something else? And maybe the toughest one, have you forgotten the grace, the unearned help, the lucky breaks, the sheer good fortune that brought you this far?
Those are big questions. They really make you pause and think.
They're meant to. They're not just rhetorical. They're for real self-examination.
Yeah. And that's where it becomes personal, doesn't it? This deep dive pushes us to think about our own gifts, things we might just assume are normal that we take for granted. Talents, relationships, health, opportunities.
All those things.
And the challenge from the devotional is pretty direct. Today, choose gratitude. Let your life reflect thankfulness and loyalty to the one who gave you everything. It frames it as an active choice, not just a passive feeling, something you decide to do.
Exactly. It's a conscious orientation. And the narrative really hammers this home, reminding us everything we have is from him. And it uses that stark image. Remember the days of your youth when you were naked and bare, wallowing in your blood, before receiving these blessings.
Which sounds harsh, but the point isn't accusation, is it?
No, I don't think so. It's more like, remember where you started. Remember the vulnerability, the need. It makes the grace the gifts receive stand out even more. Remembering the starting point helps you appreciate the journey and the help along the way.
So as we kind of wrap up here, the core message from Ezekiel 16, brought out by the devotional, is this really stark warning. Forgetting grace, misusing blessings. It really can lead to spiritual ruin, to deep relationship damage. It's a powerful story about how destructive ingratitude can be, often in ways that boomerang back on us. It reminds us that truly appreciating things isn't just nice manners, it's, well, fundamental to a good life.
Absolutely. And that leaves us with, I think, a really provocative thought to chew on, something the devotional touches on in its reflection. How can we, in our own lives, actively cultivate and return to a posture of gratitude? A way of living that's mindful and appreciative. How do we make sure our lives are more like a fragrant offering, something positive, thankful, adding value, instead of becoming this sad monument to forgotten grace? What does it really look like day to day to remember where our blessings come from and live in response to that generosity? It's a deep question.
It really is something to keep thinking about. We definitely encourage you to continue your own deep dive into these ideas. Thanks so much for joining us on The Deep Dive.